The question that turned a guest into family. In a small town in Ohio, where the winter rain never seemed to stop, there stood an old wooden house whose lights stayed on even at 11 o'clock at night. Living in that house was a 40-year-old man named Daniel Carter, who had been left alone after his father's passing. Daniel was a mechanic, fixing cars with his own hands. But the broken part inside him was something no one could repair. His wife had died in an accident 3 years earlier, and since then, Daniel had locked himself away in this small house, where only an old radio and a dog kept him company. That night, the weather was terrible. The rain was so heavy that the streets had turned into rivers, and the wind was so fierce that tree branches were snapping. Daniel was looking out his window when he saw something he never expected to see. Across the street, under a street lamp, stood a girl, holding nothing but a small duffel bag, soaked to the bone, shivering, as if the world had simply thrown her out. Daniel's first thought was that maybe she was waiting for her ride, or making a call, but 10 minutes passed, then 20, and the girl just stood there, as if she had no idea where to go next. Something inside Daniel, something that had been asleep for 3 years, suddenly woke up. He put on his coat and walked outside. "Excuse me," he said, his voice as gentle as he could make it. "Are you okay? It's dangerous to be standing out here in this weather." The girl looked up. Her eyes were blue, but they held the kind of exhaustion only understood by people who have lost far too much. "I'm fine," she said, though her voice was trembling. "I just missed my bus, and I have nowhere to go." Her name was Emily, 22 years old, fresh out of college. Her scholarship had run out, and she had no home left to return to. Her mother had passed away when she was only 16, and her stepfather had thrown her out right after graduation, telling her, "You're grown now, find your own way." She had come to the city for a job interview, but the interview had been canceled, and she had neither the money to go back nor anyone she knew here. Daniel didn't make any grand decision in that moment. He simply said, "I have a spare room. Just for tonight, just for one night, you can stay there. In the morning, we'll figure out what's next." Emily hesitated at first. Going to a stranger's house, especially at night, filled her with fear. But the rain was relentless, and her body was so exhausted that she finally nodded. That night, Daniel dusted off the guest room, changed the old sheets, and made Emily a warm bowl of soup. They didn't talk much. He only told her that whatever she needed by morning, she could just ask. That night, for the first time in months, Emily slept peacefully, because there was a door that could lock, and someone who wasn't asking anything of her. In the morning, Daniel thought Emily would leave, find her own way. But when he walked into the kitchen, Emily was already there, wiping down the table, making coffee. "I figured," she said, a little hesitant, "I could at least do this much for you. After everything you did for me." Daniel smiled, for the first time in months. "You don't have to do this." "I know," Emily said, "but I want to." She stayed that day, and the next day, too. Daniel never once pushed her to leave, and Emily had nowhere else to go anyway. Slowly, a week passed, then 2. Emily found a part-time job at the local diner and started giving Daniel money for rent, which he refused every time. But Emily insisted. A strange kind of bond began forming between them. When Daniel came home from the garage at night, Emily would already have dinner ready. When Emily came home tired from the diner, Daniel would have her favorite show already on, without a word. The two of them found comfort in each other's silence, because both had seen so much pain that they understood one another's quiet. One night, months later, as winter was nearing its end, Emily asked Daniel the question she had carried in her heart since the first day. "Why did you invite me in that night? You didn't even know me." Daniel set down his coffee cup and stayed silent for a moment. Then he said, "The night my wife died, I was standing on a street too, alone, in my own way. No one could see it back then, because I was falling apart on the inside while looking normal on the outside. When I saw you under that street lamp, it felt like I was looking at myself. I thought, if someone had called out to me back then, maybe my pain wouldn't have lasted this long." Tears filled Emily's eyes. "You saved me." "No," Daniel shook his head. "The truth is, you saved me. Before you came, I was just alive. since you came, learning to actually live again. Time passed. Emily got a promotion at her job, and Daniel expanded his garage, hiring a new mechanic. Their house, once filled with silence, now echoed with laughter. Emily hung her paintings on her bedroom walls, because Daniel had told her his wife used to paint too, and it felt good to see those colors again. But every story has a difficult turn. One day, Emily's biological father, whom she had never met, suddenly got in touch. He said he was sick and wanted to see her, and that he had put a property in her name, which she would only receive if she moved to another city and lived with him. This was a major test for Emily. Money, security, a chance at having a real family she had never experienced. It was all right in front of her, but on the other side was Daniel, and the home that had become hers. Emily told Daniel about it, confusion clear in her eyes. I don't know what I should do. Going against his own instincts. Daniel took her hand and said, Emily, I will never stop you. If this is right for you, you should go. But remember, blood doesn't make family. Time, care, and those small nights when we leaned on each other. That's what real family is. Emily went to that other city for a few days to meet her biological father. But when she came back, there was a peace on her face that hadn't been there before. That man, she told Daniel, only wanted me because he needed an heir for his property. He never once asked how I was doing, what I liked, what hurt me. He only saw his own need. She looked at Daniel, and for the first time, Daniel saw complete certainty in her eyes. My real family is here. This house, this little house where you brought me in out of the rain. This is my home. That evening, Daniel threw a small gathering for Emily, just their close friends and neighbors, and he made an announcement in front of everyone that he had been thinking about for months. I want to legally adopt Emily as my daughter if she's willing. I know I'm not her biological father, and I can't take her mother's place, but from the day she walked into this house, I've wanted to do everything for her that a real father would. Emily broke down crying, but they were tears of joy. Yes, she said. Yes, I want that. The story doesn't end here. 2 years later, Emily opened her own small art gallery. Daniel stood at the very front of her first exhibition, camera in hand, photographing every painting, as if he wanted to show the whole world what his daughter had created. The most special painting in that exhibition was of a young girl, holding a duffel bag, standing beneath a street lamp, with the light of a house glowing in the distance. Its title was, The Night I Found Home. When people asked Emily what the painting was about, she simply said, it's about the night a stranger gave me his home, and without even realizing it, gave me his heart too. Sometimes family isn't made of blood. Sometimes family is made from one question, are you okay? And one answer, no, but I am now. Daniel, standing in the crowd watching his daughter, couldn't hold back his tears. That night, when he had put on his coat and walked out into the rain, he hadn't known that he wasn't just helping a stranger. He was finding his own way back to living. Today, their house is still that same old wooden house, but now, its lights don't just stay on until 11 at night. They stay on all the time, because now, it's not just one lonely man who lives there, but a family born from one stormy night. And every year, on the anniversary of that night, when raindrops fall against the window, Daniel and Emily sit together, warm coffee in hand, remembering the first question that changed their lives. Are you okay? Because sometimes, the smallest question in the world builds the biggest bond. And sometimes, a guest who comes for just one night becomes part of the home forever. This story isn't just about Daniel and Emily. It's about everyone who has ever reached out to a stranger without thinking about what they'd get in return. It's about everyone who turned their own pain into someone else's help. And most of all, it's about everyone still standing under some street lamp, wondering if anyone will ever see them. If you ever find yourself standing in a place like that, remember, sometimes, after the darkest night, comes the warmest home. And if you ever see someone standing in a place like that, stop for a moment and ask, are you okay? Because you never know whose life that small question might change forever.